Hi everyone, I hope you're good guy. Welcome to a new video. So today I'm gonna show you how I made my Industrial Hard Techno template. So basically this template I've been creating during my live stream session, so you can actually see how it's been created from scratch, from zero. Today we're gonna focus more on how I create each element and why, and we're gonna check the MIDI note and so. And next week we're gonna talk more about the global arrangement, the mixing and mastering. So alright, let's jump into Ableton and let's have a listen. How does it sound? So it sounds like this. Alright, so that's the kind of vibe you can get. If you like, don't forget to like, subscribe. Yeah, let's get started with the kick. For the kick, I didn't really have anything in mind especially, and I basically layer some kick. And the way I've done this time, usually when you layer kick, you can like layer low kick with then after like a mid-range percussion and the kind of a click to create a kick. Here I just like drop some kicks and I try to match them together, see which one was fitting well with which one and pitch them. And that's what I've done basically. You can see here you have like a track and you see these three as missing is because I removed them, but I keep all the others, so it's kind of a heavy layering. But yeah, you can see you have a kick like this, you have kick like this, which is more like kind of a hammering kick, let's say. Then you have kick like this, which is more like low, distorted a bit, more like a kind of punchy kick. This one I pitch it down as well. And I have this one which I use I basically low pass the kick but use an envelope to kind of get this kind of vibe. You can see there is an envelope here, and so yeah, if I and altogether I done that. It's just, there is no secret recipe. It's just like I was trying, experimenting until I get a kick. I like them in terms of process. I just use utility to reduce the gain, add a bit of dynamic chip. Dynamic chip just bring a little bit more the kick in the front. Add a bit of punch as well. Drum bass is pretty heavy, obviously, especially with the boom. You have compression as well, and the hard mode. Usually the hard mode of the drum bass add a bit of bass as well. I didn't put the whole wet signal, but yeah, just a little bit. Then I EQ, so it just was like to kind of mainly boost the low and the high and kind of remove. Under everything under 25 Hertz, and yeah, just boost here. Then I have my kick verb, so I will put the link in the description of all of my rack. I'm not going to explain them again, but yeah, it's just a rumble. Here the thing is off beat. You can see the pre-delay is at 200 milliseconds, which means that your rumble is off beat. Then I have this kick verb top rack, which is basically allowing me to add a kind of a kick reverb effect, but the high frequency of the kick reverb, not the low rumble, and it's kind of creating a kind of ambience. If I abuse, and same here, it's kind of offbeat by putting at 200 milliseconds, so it gets this kind of nice kind of add a bit of groove. And then I have my kick punch track, which just gonna bring up the mids a little bit more and the high, help the kick cut through the mix basically. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the kick. In terms of pattern, it's playing floor to the floor, and I've just had some variation here. When I have a different colors, it's when there is a variation, so you can as well here, where it's kind of more like kind of a kind of repeat like this. So it just was to add a bit of variation. Right now I have reverse kick. So here is something I've experimented with. Is basically, so here is a audio loop, but you can see it was originally a kick that I have freeze and flatten, and then I just reverse it, and I've kind of EQ and add a bit of sidechain compression, and basically it's reversed, but it's just playing before the kick. Basically you can see you have your reverse coming like this, and with the kick here. So basically when you have kind of get kind of slapping effect. So then you can experiment and maybe shift it a little bit for different kind of vibes, but I didn't want it to put it the whole track because after it's kind of annoying a little bit, but having a part during the track where you have this reverse kick is add a bit of variation as well. Instead we have this click. So this was to have a kind of a granular percussion, and the way I've done that is I used analog and I used the square. One important thing here, you have the LFO, which is kind of modulating the pulse width of the oscillator one, and it can add this kind of nice, almost like a detune effect, but it gives so much character, and it's low pass with a sharp envelope. But here the idea was really to have this gritty, nasty percussion, so I use amp to kind of bring up that, EQ8 to filter and really get this, just this clicky, granular percussion, bit of saturation, sidechain compression to have pumping effect, and then a filter delay. So filter delay I like because you obviously can filter the delay and you can get different kind of feelings with your delay and really give character rather than the just normal delay. So here by the left one you can have a different band than the right one, and yeah, and then a bit of reverb, and yeah. It's just a top kick layer to add a bit of grittiness and groove. Alright, let's move into the drums. So basically it's the hats here. So I have drum racks with closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, what I call a shaker, but it's more kind of open hats that I use as like a shaker. And you have two different rides. So each element, you can see there is not that much I can say about. It's just like samples that I use from a sample pack of mine. And all the time it's a bit of reverb. I will come back about this when I'm talking about mixing, about how I set my reverb for that. But yeah, you can see it's mainly mixing elements. So here I use delay has a stereo effect, put my hats on the side. Again, I will come back to it at the mixing part. So yeah, nothing fancy. Say in terms of sound design, it's just sample that I have after EQ'd. But again, it's more like a mixing things than really sound design. So I'm just gonna pass them and I'm just gonna go over the pattern, which is might be a bit more interesting. So you have the closed hi-hat playing like classic 16 closed hi-hat, like, let me solo. Okay, then you have your open hats playing offbeat. Then you have what I've called the checker. And I've called the checker because you can see there is, if you check the velocity, you can see it's going up and down. And that's something that I use usually for shaker pattern. And yeah, you have the strongest one offbeat, and thereafter it's going up and down like this. And this way you can really get this ta-da-da, ta-da-da, rather than if I bring everything to the same velocity. It's not exactly the same, you know. It's kind of a sidechain, if you can say so. Then you have two rides. So this shaker, the purse is really to kind of extra groove, extra brief to the open hat. You have the open hats hitting offbeat, but the shaker can add an extra driveness basically to your hats. And then you have two rides. So obviously, again, ride works well in techno. So here the pattern for the first one, it's similar. You can see you have like low velocity and it's ascending until the one which is offbeat. And then you have the second ride. So I've created two rides just because It's just add a bit of variation, to be honest, and it was like to don't have always the same and to, yeah, add a bit of variation. They are playing a different pattern. The tone is different as well of the ride, so this one is more like 10 10 10 10 10 10, rather the other one was like a more like, so yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the hats and the pattern. Then we jump into the claps. So clap here. So every time you see different color, it's because there is different patterns. So like this, you can easily check different kind of pattern that I've made for each element. So here the clap is playing offbeat. You can hear. And I've layered to clap. So you have 909 clap and one which is kind of a bit like a 909. Again, I haven't done much process. This one I pitch it up 1 semitone, but other than that, it's just like a bit of EQ and reverb. The reverb was ready to put it in a big room. So for this part of the track is playing offbeat, and here after you have here like a, because it's the break, you have a kind of a roll, but then after it's playing on the same, in the same time than the beat, and it's just the 909 one playing, the other one is not playing. And same goes there. Make even you kick even more aggressive, so that's interesting as well. Next one we have Perc Loop. So this one, you can see it's again is this kind of shaker pattern. I use basically a hat sound. If I remove, all right, and I use this rack. So this is my industrial perc rack. I will put the link in the description as well. Point of this rack is adding movement to your percussion by adding delay and adding a filter as well, which is gonna sweep. And there is as well a rattle effect, which is a kind of a weird pitch flangery modulation as well. So you have the, okay, you can see here with the filter getting this modulating, and then after you have the rattle as well, which is kind of creating a metallic percussion. And just EQ and percussion. And yeah, that's... Alright, next percussion, it's Perc 1. Sound like this. Here the idea was you have this percussion, but that I've pitched down, otherwise it was more like this. So you pitch down. Then I wanted to really to get the grit out of it, so I had the saturator in hard curve mode. Alright, but then if I put it in the reverb, I'm gonna show you. I had like a big kind of cavernous reverb as well. But you hear too much the distortion, and it's kind of missing a bit of character and adding a nice EQ. Like this is kind of fun EQ, you know, like with the high frequency and the low frequency cut heavily. And straight away you get something more interesting and more industrial sounding, and yeah. And yes, it's playing like just before the kick and then after between the kick. See, you have your kick every beat here, and you have one just playing before and one between. Alright, then we have this Amb Synth Hi and Amb Synth Low. So this is basically, I use basically the melody of the lead that I will come back to it later. So that's how it sounds dry. You see it's a square wave. Here again, same, I think it's, I probably use the same preset, I don't remember, but probably something similar than the click one. And yeah, here again, the trick is the LFO, which is modulating the pulse width. Get this nice kind of detuned vibes, and it's filtered, nothing crazy with the envelope, and then filter, just making louder. Again, filter delay kind of to put a bit in the background and give a bit of space to the sound. And reverb, really like to put it in a very big space. And kind of messing with everything like this. You cannot really hear the dry signal. You can see it's very long dry wet and a long decay time. And everything sidechain, and here again, every time you see stereo with, it's basically a delay that I use as a Haas effect. And yeah, that's for the high, and then I have the low, which is exactly the same patch, but it's just like playing an octave down, the same pattern, otherwise it's the same. So this is what I've called recycling. If you're familiar with my video, you know I do that a lot. I like to reuse same elements but process them differently, or playing them at different octave, or tweaking them just a little bit. Okay, then we have, I will come back to the MIDI when I'm talking about the Synth 2 main, because it's the same MIDI pattern. So then we have Synth 1. So this is kind of a horn, I don't know, industrial effect. And the way to do that, okay, the key here is to have like a two sawtooth, and they are slightly detuned. So you can see there is, okay, everything is normal. I detuned just secondary oscillator 1 semitone. Already you get this kind of weird vibe. But when I add reverb, it's where everything makes sense. I'm gonna put it now because like this you can hear how completely change the vibe, and then after you can as well detune a bit more as well to accentuate, and everything is going through a low pass filter and 24 dB, and I just add a bit of envelope, make it a bit pluckier, you know, with sustain at 0.50 and GK at 600. And then the idea again is to get a bit of grit out of the sound, so a bit of saturation, make it louder. Amp, obviously again add a nice grittiness, but again it's too much distortion, so again I have same idea. I filter everything, so like this is a bit more smoother and it fits better. And it's just playing before the kick here again, and so that's how you get this. And it's not playing too often neither, because you don't want to get tired of it. Alright, and then we have Synth Main 2. In terms of the MIDI notes, you have C sharp, and then you have F, E4, and C4. And then after it's repeating again and again, it's like ta-dun, 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 ta-dun. So yeah, you can see like it's not really like a minor scale or major scale. There is like notes who are like as well not in the scale. But that's what gets this kind of weird horrific dramatic vibes. And then for the sound itself, I use my Transilite modern rack. So I'll put the link in the description if you want to find out more. I'm just going to explain quickly what it is. Basically, it's a patch to get this kind of trancy lead sound. So you need two sawtooths that you're going to detune, and you're going to add unison effect. So that was the idea of the rack, basically. Here I just removed the unison because I wanted something not that much detune. And you can see, so the oscillator 2 is detuned from oscillator 1. They both are the same. Low pass filter, again, which is modulating by envelope 2, which is kind of very plucky. So this way you get this short and sharp sound. Here again, the oscillator 1 is detuned 1 semitone. Just accentuate this dramatic effect and this kind of scary effect. So yeah, that's the main idea. In terms of process effect, I will let you go to check the video of the rack, because it's basically just like some saturation, enhancements, and delay, reverbs, nothing crazy. Just here, what is interesting about is I modulate the sync along the track to create nice variation. This is kind of acting a bit like a pitch. You can see the pattern as well. What I've done is, so there is one thing. I played this pattern. So I play either like this, or I can keep just the lower note. You see here, this one, the note I was just playing 1 octave upper. It's the same pattern, but 1 octave upper. And you can see the length of the loop. It's not like a 4 bar, properly 4 bar, which give you this kind of polymeter hypnotic effect along the track as well. And that's why you will see as well during the track, like it's not everything perfectly on the grid of like every 8 bar changement or every 16 bar changement. It's kind of shifting a little bit sometimes because it's kind of a weird bar length basically. But yeah, you have this MIDI transposition here. Here I keep the same octave, but you can see you have a sync modulation and it's kind of pitching. You're gonna hear. And yeah, one thing as well I've done is for the first part here, I've applied, it's like kind of playing low note. And then here it's playing 1 octave upper, and rather than the first part it's playing 1 octave down. Again, it's to add variation because it's the same short melody, so to kind of don't get too bored of it. And this plus the sync plus the filter modulating, it keeps things interesting. And then it's just a bit of sidechain compression. And yeah, that's it for the Synth Main 2. And then you have this one, which is, I call it VII. It's again the same MIDI pattern, the same melody. And here you can see I reuse again the same analog. You can see this analog preset is the same than ambient synth and is the same than the click. Again, analog with the pulse width modulating by the LFO. And it's just again a different process, but if I wasn't telling you that it was the same preset, you wouldn't have guessed. So yeah, because it's obviously processed differently again. So square modulating by the LFO, the pulse width going through the low pass filter. With this plucky envelope again, you see sustain at 0.5 and the decay at 600 milliseconds. Same with the amplitude. Amp to add a bit of grittiness that I filter after to don't have these two nasty frequencies. Saturator to make it louder. Filter delay add a bit of movement and character. And yeah, and this is playing in the first part, which is allowing me to have a bit of variation. It's the same melody. So you see, it doesn't really feel it's the same sound or the same melody because it's two different sounds, and even though it's the same melody. And what I've done here, I've done something I've tried. Here you can see what I've done is they play both in the same time with the main, but I kind of shift a little bit the MIDI. You can see like half the note, and it's kind of getting a rather than if I was putting like this as usual. I don't know, by shifting it a bit, it's kind of getting a weird vibe, so I just left it like this. That's something maybe I will experiment more in the future as well, like kind of slightly shifting something. Then we go to ambient noise, and guess what we have? We have again our same analog patch, so but again still the FX process is completely different, so obviously it's playing at a lower pitch as well. And again the LFO is modulating the pulse width here. Low pass filter, here there is no filter modulation. You see obviously all the time I kind of tweak a little bit here, the attack is a bit more. You have 20 milliseconds, so it doesn't make it that plucky. And I filter it. And this basically is kind of pretty similar to this one in a certain way, except the EQ that is a bit different, but otherwise the saturation, delay and reverb is almost the same. But here I add the frequency shifter, and it completely transforming the sound. It's not anymore something like more like melodic, it's more something like noisy. So this you mainly hear it at the beginning. Then obviously during the track. With all of the other elements it's quite hard to hear it, but you know, it's this kind of element being there without being here. Then we have noise SFX and clap SFX. So this is just SFX. Again, if you're familiar with my video, this is something really easy to do. you take your clap and you dip it into a lot of reverb. You freeze, flatten, reverse, and I've made a video about that. I will put the link in the description as well. This is something really easy to do. And obviously, because you use elements from your own track, it's gonna fit rather than spending time to look for SFX in a library. Just take your element, put it into a lot of reverb with a very long decay. So like this, you have something with a long tail. Maybe add a compression as well to kind of make the tail a little bit more sustained. And then you just freeze flatten. And basically one is just the reverse of the other. And here you have a sidechain. All the time we will see a compressor. It's for sidechain compression. And it's just like to get this pumping effect, to leave the first to add rhythm and second to let the kick cut through the mix. For example, here and here, the sidechain is always triggered by this track, which is called sidechain, which is the first one, which is just basically a 909 clap. I use that rather than the kick because sometimes the kick stop, but you still want your pumping effect. You know, for example, if in this part I don't use the kick, but I still want the pumping effect. If I put the kick as a trigger, it won't get the pumping effect. So I use a different trigger and I use it for that. And as you can see, there is different color as well. It's every time there is a variation, basically the color change on this clip. So that's kind of helping you to visualize how often there is a changement, kind of a reference. Then you have Submixdown, and Mixdown, I already explained plenty of time why I have this. Basically, I have this track here because I don't like to put my master effect on the master. So my master will be only for the mastering, but I still love to have SFX, like for example, the low cut or like this riser effect. I didn't use it for this track, but it's kind of a washout effect. I like to have it on a different track than my master. So that's why I create first the Mixdown, but then after I create a Submixdown. So all the tracks are going to the Submixdown, and then the Submixdown is going to the Mixdown. But the thing is why I create that is because I want to be able to play with this return. This return basic, actually, it's a rack from Make a Transition. I will put in encryption. It's a very simple but effective rack. It's just a reverb, but work well for this kind of effect. I will come back in next week's video. And yeah, so the thing is, what I want to do is I want to be able to send my whole track, my whole Mixdown into the return, but having the return and my Mixdown still being affected by an EQ or the master effect. So, and this you cannot do it if you don't create these two Submixdown and Mixdown. So this way, everything is going to the Submixdown. The Submixdown, I can send here all of my Submixdown, all of my track. I can send it to the return. And then the return plus the Submixdown are going to the Mixdown, where this can be again processed all together as one. And I can use the washout effect. And then my Mixdown goes to the master, where I have my mastering chain. I don't know if it makes sense, but so I hope you guys liked the video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can grab the template, link in the description. It's a great way to support me. And yeah, see you soon, guys. Bye bye.